Welcome to custom parameters. Let's look at how we can make an interface using custom parameters. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to double click on our network and we're going to add a base comp. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to navigate to the top right hand side of TouchDesigner and we're going to split our panes left and right. So I'm going to dive into my base on the right side and I'm going to just zoom in on my base on the left side, and inside of my base on the right hand side, I am going to double click on the network and I am going to add an in top. So the in top, once I find it here, there we go, in, we'll see that we now have this input show up on our base. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to right click on our in and we're going to add an out. Perfect. So on our base, we now see that we have our in and our out. We're going to double click next to our base and we're going to add a movie file in, not a monochrome. Okay, we have our movie file in. We're going to connect our movie file in to our base. We're going to navigate to the file parameter and let's change this to Metler 1. Perfect. And we're going to right click on the output of our base and add a null. Awesome. All right, so what we want to do is let's add some additional operators so we can add some custom parameters that we can control. So I'm going to insert an operator between my in and my out, and I'm going to add an HSV adjust. The next thing I'm going to add is a mirror. Mirror top. Perfect. So we can see that our mirror is indeed taking effect. I'm going to click on my base. The way that we can add custom parameters is by right-clicking and selecting Customize Component. You will then have a floating window appear here that says Component Editor. This component editor has the ability to add custom parameters. I'm going to add a page, the first parameter, or the first option here, and I'm going to call it My Settings. Perfect. Now we can see that we have a My Settings page on my base. Perfect. We can add our own custom parameters just by manually selecting here from this dropdown. But before we do that, what we're going to do is we're going to pull some parameters from inside of our base. The first parameter I want to pull is my hue offset. So I'm going to click and drag my hue offset onto the parameter column. And I'm going to select Set Reference Expression on Source. You also have the option to bind these parameters, but I'm going to set the expression on the source, which if I click on my hue offset, we can now see that that's here. My hue offset, I could click and drag, and now I see that my image of this like magical church is changing. Awesome. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and we are going to add one of the mirror parameters. Let's click and drag our rotate onto the component editor, set reference on source. And now we can see here, I'm just going to move my component editor, that we can also change the rotate. I'm going to just set that to 90 for now. Amazing. So now that we've added those two, let's take a look at the other options we have here. So on rotate, we have the parameter and we have the label. The parameter is when you click the drop down. So this drop down, that's the parameter, and then this is the label, which is the next option. An important thing to note for parameters is that they always must begin with uppercase and have no spaces. TouchDesigner is clever though, and it will make sure that that is the case for you. The next option here is label, or enable. So if we wanted to enable or not enable a parameter, we also have read only. So maybe you just want to be able to set something as a custom parameter, but not have anyone edit it. You just want it to be read only. A nifty parameter we also have is section, and we're actually going to use that. Section allows us to create, again, as the name implies, sections. So you always want to apply section on the parameter that you're trying is like the topmost parameter of your new section. So here is rotate, I added section, and section will add this line above. Additionally, the really important and awesome thing about just dragging a parameter is that it pulls all of the defaults. So the default is 0. You also have the range min and the range max, and that all comes from the parameter. The last thing that we're going to do here is we are going to add our own custom parameter. I'm going to call this use mirror. And I'm going to go and I'm going to set that and I want that to be a toggle, and I'm going to add parameter. We now have this use mirror parameter. I'm going to change my label so that there's a space. Perfect. And I'm going to create a section. What we're going to do is we are going to use mirror to be able to toggle on and off whether we want to have mirror. I'm going to go ahead and close that window. Inside of my base, I'm going to double click. I'm going to go to chop. And what I want to do is I want to add a parameter chop. And now we can see we have all of these parameters available to us. We have all of the ones on top of our base. So what we're going to do is we are going to double click on our network, add a switch top. And what we want to do is we want our HSV adjust to go into our switch, and then we want the mirror to go into our switch. So we want both of those two to go in there, and then the switch should go to the out. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to make our parameter viewer active, drag the use mirror onto the switch index, export chop. And then when I toggle use mirror, if mirroring is on, we now see that it is on here. The last thing we can do here is on rotate, we can write an expression. And this expression is whether or not enable should be on. That expression is me.par.use mirror. U is capitalized and mirror is not, and it is all one word. And now when I have use mirrors off, we're no longer using it. When I have use mirror on, I can access that parameter. This is really helpful to make sure that, if someone else is using this, they're not trying to control the rotate when it's not possible to do so. That is working with custom parameters.